You can't win with 5 turnovers. You can't do it. Everybody knows it. And this was probably the worst game in the Lamar Jackson era, offensively speaking. The defense kept trying to like hold on and let the offense get back into things come the second half or whatnot. But the offense came back out in the second half, went 3 and out, and then there were more turnovers. You just can't do it. And so, yeah, I mean, you don't have all the terrible offensive games in front of you, but you just have a gut feeling based off of what you've been watching. This has got to be one of the worst offensive performances in the Lamar Jackson era, and it was one of the worst games from Lamar himself. And that kind of what led everything. That, he was inaccurate and he talked. I mean, he held himself accountable pretty well in the post-game press conference. I mean, he wasn't dodging anything. He was inaccurate. He was letting some passes sail. He had the fumbles. There was the one interception. We can break all of them down, but Lamar's just not playing like Lamar. That being said, bringing it up in context of the last 5 games, I just don't. To me, this is a game that you flush. The offense has obviously been struggling to get its legs under it, and in those last 5 games, Lamar looked much more injured than he looked tonight. He was asked if there was some mechanical errors for why he was missing passes. He said, "No, I think that's what it was. I think that he just wasn't as disciplined with his mechanics, but he did look more healthy. He was running more. Still not like 100% Lamar, but certainly running more. Todd Monken called on him for some read options and stuff like that. So I don't see a pattern with this offensive game versus the previous 4 or 5 where they've been struggling but have done enough, because this offenses that had been struggling were playing clean football. They just couldn't move it as well as they had. I felt like we were seeing some movement, but then they weren't playing clean football. So to me, there's not like this overall pattern. To me, this is an offensive game that you flush. Like 5 turnovers. They had 1 turnover during their 5-game winning streak. That was what powered them to win. The defense was playing so well. All they had to do was play clean football. And then you come in against the Bengals and you know that they score a lot. But if the Ravens had played clean, a lot of times they play these other offenses that score a lot, and it's almost like they get like so nervous. I gotta start scoring. No, just play clean football. And let the defense was playing well. And if the Ravens continued to the OPI call was dumb. But if you don't have plays like that, you don't have these turnovers, you still could have won this game. So to me, horrible offensive performance. One of the worst I've seen from Lamar himself, but it's one that you flush. And it's too bad that you have to flush it. It takes 10 days to flush this one, so you get your next opportunity again. I'm not reading too much into this because I just don't see the Ravens offense turning it over 5 times in one game when they've had 1 turnover in the last 5 wins.
This is sometimes why it gets fluky in division. Those 5 turnovers forced, or whatever you want to call it, coughed up by the Ravens, forced by Cincinnati. They had 10 as a team entering the night. They finished with 5 in one game. I mean, sometimes it gets really, really fluky. You have the numbers with Lamar right now. What hasn't been a fluke is that he's struggled. He has struggled for weeks on end now, and he's had his moments. And guess what? He had his moments tonight. You've already mentioned a couple of them related to some of that speed that was encouraging to see. There were also other times where you thought, okay, yeah, he is banged up. And then there were also other times where, like, man, as he said himself post-game, he's just got to be better. He's just got to be more consistent. That's actually the word he used, consistent. Listen to this.
Can't call it. I really can't. I don't want to make nothing up. I felt like we was doing things pretty good on the field. We got first downs. We drove the ball down the field sometimes. And then a turnover happened, a mishap, here and there. We just got to be on the same page, be consistent. Like I just said, that's the biggest key right now, being consistent throughout the game, first quarter to fourth quarter, and not putting our defense on the field as much as we did.
Okay, Sarah. So here are the final numbers that you tallied up here. Again, it's a forgettable game for Lamar and this entire offense. He was 17 of 32. That's a completion percentage of 53.1 for 246 yards, no touchdowns, a pick, 2 fumbles, and a quarterback rating of 65.4. maybe we should just go in order of the turnovers in terms of kind of evaluating
Yeah.
that if you can.
I just didn't know if you want any more Lamar reaction before we go through each one.
Well, I just think it kind of led in. Yeah, I mean, we could do both. If you want to do that, I think, from an inaccuracy standpoint, I can count off the top of my head, and I have notes on them. There were at least 4 blatant misfires where he had the ample time and a pocket that was clean. Whereas he said, you just got to make those. He says he's making them in practice. You believe him, obviously, because he has throughout the course of his career. But that has not been the case of late. I had a blatant misfire to Mark Andrews. What about the one on third and 10 where he missed Zay Flowers badly? That forced a punt for Jordan Stout deep in their own end zone, and Jordan handled it admirably, as he's been doing throughout his all-pro caliber season. At one point, a layup to Keaton Mitchell was missed. That was spiked. I mean, you had several of them where you were just like, whoa, that's like so far from Lamar. So if you want to kind of start there in terms of the accuracy or lack thereof, that was extremely uncharacteristic, but it has been popping up more often than not of late.
Yeah. So, and that's why he is asking for more consistency. So literally, he must have said the word consistent like over a dozen times. I got to play consistent. Can't have the turnovers. We got to be consistent. We're putting our defense on the field too much. Can't have it. He asked for his level of frustration. He's like, level of frustration, I don't know. I'm ticked off, was his quote. He said, quote, I feel like I missed throws. I don't miss those. I got to be consistent. Said it again. I don't miss those throws in practice, so I shouldn't miss them in the game. He asked if the series of injuries that he suffered has contributed to his poor play tonight. No, I just got to be more consistent. I got to make those throws. So, he held himself accountable. John Harbaugh, this was a funny quote. He was asked if Lamar Jackson is fully healthy. He goes, fully healthy? Yeah, he's fully healthy to play. Absolutely. I don't know that that's what fully healthy means, but yeah, Lamar's definitely in a rut. I think this was the worst that we've seen since he's returned, with all those turnovers, the 2 fumbles, the interception. But he hasn't thrown a touchdown pass in 3 games. It's unfortunate because, he didn't play well, but the few times he did have some nice throws, then it was turnovers by his teammates. The deep one to, or the one to Isaiah Likely. Isaiah fumbles it at the goal line. The one to Zay Flowers, I think it was a weak OPI. I think that players do that 20 times a game and don't get called. The little push off really didn't make an impact on him getting open. So I thought that was weak. That was a nice throw by Lamar. So the times that Lamar did, was on the money. They had those plays on the other end that his teammates couldn't come up with, or like the deep passes to Tez Walker. Some of those were right on the money. He couldn't reel it in. There was some good defensive plays. So Lamar's in a rut for sure. And this one probably is the worst of the season. Again, one of the worst I've ever seen him play. And at the same time, I don't feel myself panicking like at all. I feel like Lamar's going to get himself out of the rut. I think it'll eventually come. I predicted that it was going to happen again in this game because it's the worst defense in the league. Let's just remind you that this Ravens offense only put up less than 20 points against a defense that is 31st in rush yards allowed, 32nd in points allowed, 32nd in overall yards allowed, 32nd in pass yards allowed, 32nd in points per drive, 32nd in yards per drive. It's not a good defense. And they kept saying on the broadcast that they've been playing better as of late. And that's fine, but the Ravens shot themselves in the foot with all these turnovers. They were moving the ball. They were. And just over and over and over again, just the weirdest turnovers, and the calls and all of that set them back. I personally am looking forward to the rematch in 2 weeks because I think the Ravens can play much better than they did tonight. I think Lamar's going to be ticked. And when I say 2 weeks, I mean in 2 games, because it's obviously the 10-day break. So I'm excited for that rematch because I think the offense can put a much better product on the field.
They better. They better. I mean, tonight was, you kind of alluded to it a couple times now. This might be one of the most lackluster offensive performances in the last 8 years, And if it's not the most, it's on a short list, I would think, of candidates. And a lot of it starts and ends with Lamar. And you appreciate him taking accountability as he did. You also appreciate John Harbaugh getting up there, which he doesn't often do, and blames the 5 turnovers on himself as he did at the podium. I don't know if I've ever heard that from him, ever.
Which is funny is everybody wants accountability from John, but in this case, like, I'm not putting those turnovers on him. Like, sorry.
I was like,
John, take accountability for other things, not this point, not this. Like,
I was, man.
You're not Isaiah Likely, like, fumbling the ball at the goal line. Like, you're not Zay Flowers, taking a hit at the end of the game and it popping out. You're not Lamar, who's like, oh, last second, I don't want to throw that to Zay Flowers and bring it down. It slips out of your hand. Like, you preach, you coach, you do the drills, you do everything you're supposed to do with the turnovers. There's a lot of things that you could put on John Harbaugh's shoulders. This is what you take accountability for? This?
The irony, man. The irony in that is really striking.
Yeah.
Just one note before we get back to Lamar, and we're going to go turnover by turnover breakdown. Maybe that's causing eye rolls all throughout our audience right now, but we got to do it. Those that were criticizing Todd Monken after the first half left me baffled. And the criticism from some that were in my mentions was aimed at Derrick Henry's usage, just 5 carries in the first half. And I thought to myself, man, that's really nitpicking, because while you want more from Derrick on paper, especially when a couple of his chunk yards tonight, including that first half touchdown, led you to believe that he's going to have a big, big night. And the numbers showed you that he did have a very productive night. But I know that it left some to be desired, left you wanting more out there in the fan base. You got to remember, this is an offense that had 3 turnovers. You already mentioned, Sarah, the fluky OPI that Terry, I'm forgetting his last name, but he's the rules analyst, Macaulay, I think, for the NBC crew, says was totally tic-tac, whatever you want to call it. That wiped Zay's touchdown off the board. And then at least, 3 misfires that I've already referenced from Lamar in the first half. We're going to sit here and blame Todd Monken? Come on. I'm talking about the first half, Josh. I'm talking about the first half, because I couldn't see eye to eye, 1 iota, with anybody that was pointing a finger at Todd Monken after 2 quarters of football. And quite frankly, after 4 quarters. I don't know what was up in the end there, down 2 scores, handing it off to Rasheen Ali, but the game was out of hand. So this was on Lamar. This was on the players. And it was an epic failure from an offensive standpoint. And I think we should probably get into turnover by turnover in terms of how this happened chronologically, Sarah, beginning with a complete breakdown on the right-hand side of the Ravens offensive line early on in this game. Terrible by 77. And what's Roger's number? I can't remember, but Roger
70.
Rosengarten. What's that? 70. Thank
70.
you.
Yep.
Those 70s, man, the 77 and 70, they blew up this play. Sure, you can criticize Lamar for the ball handling here, but he was on an island. Ultimately, Cincinnati actually did not come away with anything because of a great defensive stand, which led to a turnover on downs from Zach Orr's defense. But obviously a terrible way to start. But again, the Ravens did not pay the price, at least in the form of giving up points as a result.